Don't you love that little intro thing? I just love it. I thought Paul did a great job on it. I don't want to see it again. No, we won't see it again. But really good to have you here. My name is Ken, and I just want to welcome you to part 2 in our 4-part series simply called Happy Home. And we're talking about 4 keys to healthy relationships. Whatever relationships you're in, we want them to be happy and healthy. That's what we're talking about. And whether you're on our online campus or down at our Kitchener campus or in the Westside Odd or in the main auditorium in Waterloo, we're just so thankful that you're here, because together we're going to take another step in learning how to have healthy, safe, growing, vibrant, intimate relationships. So every one of us in the room has a circle of relationships and multiple relationships, right? I mean, you may have a spouse. That's a relationship. You may have a parent or parents. You may have a kid or kids. You may have friends, co-workers, a big family of relatives, maybe not so big a family of relatives. But in every single case, in every single relationship that you have a desire, a deep longing for that to be healthy and happy and safe and vibrant. That's your dream. But there's a problem with our dream. There's an invader in our dream, and that is that conflict happens. Have you noticed that? That in every relationship, there's the potential for, and then often the experience of conflict. Deep conflict, difficult conflict, it just happens. And it's going to happen just as sure as a telemarketer is going to call you. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it just happens. And sometimes it comes out of nowhere, and sometimes you're a little prepared for it, but in no case I've never met anybody who goes, yeah, man, I love conflict. I'm hoping for one today. I mean, that just doesn't happen, right? We don't want those, but they do come. How do we respond to those? And I think the truth of the matter is that conflict is inevitable for a lot of reasons. I mean, just take the fact of how different we are. Take men and women. They're different. Have you noticed that? And those differences can create all kinds of, the differences are quite fascinating. For example, when it comes to public washrooms, have you noticed what happens, the difference between men and women? Like, women do it in groups. It's like this group therapy, or something's going on in the bathroom. I mean, they just want, hey, will you want to come with me? You never hear a guy saying, hey, Jim, you want to go to the washroom with me? Like, just doesn't happen. We don't do that. But women can go in there, and you know what? They're in there. It's like they'll meet a total stranger. It's like their best friend. They just talk forever. Guys, you know what we do? We go to the bathroom. We do our business. We get out of there, right? We don't talk to other people. We don't look at other people. Like, we just do it. That's what we do. But there's this radical difference between the two. I mean, think about this too. Men seem to like things more than people. Women tend to like people. Women get lost and they ask for directions. Men never get lost. Getting lost would make a man look stupid, and a man may take a scenic route, drive a little bit more, and wants to check things out. But we don't get lost. Some say men are hunters and women are gatherers. Men protect, women nurture. Men and women have different brain structures, think differently, believe differently, handle stress differently, behave differently. And that's a recipe for conflict between men and women, right? But it isn't just that kind of differences. We could talk about the differences that we have in so many other areas. We're from different families, right? Each one of us is from a different family context. We have different abilities, different experiences, different skills, different IQs, different physiology, different races, different belief systems. I mean, we are just so different that when you take all of those realities and you stick two people together in the right context, it's inevitable that there are going to be some conflicts. And so this morning, what I want to do is I want to talk about conflicts and how to basically deal with them, okay, in a healthy way. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you, I was going to give you 10, but the 10 commandments have already been taken. So what I'm going to talk about are 9 rules for fighting fair. Can you say that with me, please? 9 rules for fighting fair. Now, we can fight unfairly. We can get nasty. We can do it badly. And basically, this is a talk that I gave a number of years ago, and I've reworked it a little bit for today, so it's kind of old for maybe some of you have heard this. I'm hoping some of you can remember it to have said, yeah, I heard that. But if that doesn't happen, that's okay. But I want to talk about these 9 rules. And you're saying, like, 9 rules? And how much time do we have? And I actually got the first service out like 10 minutes early, because I thought, I'm never going to get through this, and I went and talked really quickly, but I'm not going to do that in this service. I'm going to get you out on time. You're going to say, like, 9, that just seems overwhelming, Ken. How am I ever going to remember 9? You're not. That's okay. But there may be 1 or 2 that you're going to say, oh boy, I got to work on this, and if that's the case, it's a home run, okay? You ready for that? So let's talk about the 9 rules. Here's the first one. Realize why. Can you say that with me, please? Realize why. Why are you in this conflict? What is it that's causing this conflict? That's a really important question to ask, isn't it? Why the verbal jousting? Why the tension? Why all this struggle that we're going through? I think one of the first things you need to ask is why. Because the why may actually be deeper than the experience itself. And it may be that you know the why, but you need to maybe know the why of the other person, so that's a really big thing, an important thing for us to understand. So if I was to ask you, what is it that causes conflict, and you could come up with one word for it, what would be the word that would cover off the whys? Well, I want to suggest it's the word desires. A desire is to fancy, to wish, to long for, to crave, to want, or to covet. That's the way you define that word. When our desires are thwarted, when our desires are blocked, whatever that desire may be, that can often precipitate a conflict. And one of the things that can be helpful for us in dealing with conflict is to identify the desire that is being stopped or buried or ignored, whatever it may be. So James talks about this in chapter 4 of his book in the Bible. And here's what he says to us in verse 1. What causes fights and quarrels among you? It's right into a group of Christians. Don't they come from your, what's the word? Desires. They come from your desires. Don't the fights and the quarrels and the struggles that you're going through, really when you boil it all down, aren't they about your desires that battle within you? You want something, but you don't get it, okay? And because you want something and you're not getting it, that's desires being blocked or twisted or detoured or thwarted or misplaced in some way. That's what causes you to then get a little, the hair up in the back of your neck and get a little nasty and a fight goes on. Or that's what the other person is experiencing and you're kind of being the target, but you need to address and deal with that issue. Now you may say to me, what kinds of desires are they that cause us to engage in conflict? Let me share a few of them with you. One of them is the desire to possess. The longing to have something. I want to have something, and I'm not getting what I want to have. And if I could get what I want to have, we wouldn't have this conflict, right? So the text says, you want something, James writes, and you don't get it. He says in verse 2, you cannot have what you want. And this is often a place where conflict happens. I want something, I'm not getting something. That person wanted something, and I'm stopping them from experiencing that. It's this problem, this desire to have something. Now, we learn this when we're really, really little. There's kind of like this law of children and toys. You ever heard of this law of children and toys? And how children will respond? This is like the kids' possession rules. It goes like this. If I like it, it's mine. If I can take it away from you, it's mine. If I had it a while ago, it's mine. If I say it's mine, it's mine. If it looks like mine, it's mine. If I saw it first, it's mine. If you're having fun with it, it's mine. If you lay down your toy, it's mine. If it's broken, it's yours, right? Isn't that the role we play? And all of us understand that because we all did it. Or maybe we all still do it, right? At some level. So this whole thing is kind of important for us to understand. One of the reasons that we fight is because our desire to possess gets thwarted. Here's the second one, our desire for pleasure. It's the longing to do something or feel something. I just want to relax. I really didn't want to go there. Do you understand what I'm saying? I want to feel good. I want to, that's what I want to do. And the text reads this way. Because you ask with wrong motives, and he's talking about prayer here in verse 3, but still it's desire that comes out in the context. Because you ask with wrong motives that you may spend what you get on your pleasures. You're wanting pleasure. And so this second one here, the desire for pleasure, is one that when I don't experience the pleasure, I think I deserve a break. I think I deserve to experience this, and this didn't happen right, and why did you mess this up, and why can't we go and do this? And when that happens to us, we can become, that's a desire that's messed up and causes us a fight. Here's a third one, the desire for personal pride, the longing to be. What I mean by this is The desire to be respected, the desire to be valued, and I don't feel like I'm being valued. I don't feel like I'm being respected. And when that happens to me, it can cause some problems. And Proverbs in the Living Bible says pride only leads to arguments. It's talking about an unhealthy kind of self-evaluation, a unhealthy way of looking at myself. That kind of pride will lead to an argument. So when you think about it, the desire to possess, the desire for pleasure, the desire for personal pride, those may be the triggers that have caused the conflict. Now there may be others, but it's really healthy for us to be able to figure out, why am I fighting? Or why do I feel like I want to fight? Or why is that person fighting me? What's going on? What is the desire? This is a question. What is the desire? Okay? And he will say that these desires, he says, they battle within you. They're uncontrolled. Let me just say this. Let me back up a bit. Let me say this. The desire to possess, the desire for pleasure, the desire for personal pride, nothing wrong with those if they're in a healthy balance. Okay? So it's okay to want to possess things if it's done in a healthy way. It's okay to want to experience pleasure. It's okay to have a healthy kind of pride, if I can even say that. But when something happens, when the desires battle within us, in other words, they're out of control, or you're not getting them, they're being blocked, they're not being satisfied, or they're with the wrong kind of motives, they're ungodly kind of desires. You've taken it and you've taken those three and twisted them a bit. So when they're uncontrolled, unsatisfied, or ungodly, they can create a problem. And those desires, that's where we need to start. You need to ask yourself in a conflict, whether you're feeling like you want to start one or you're feeling you're on the other end of one, what desire is being thwarted? What desire is being pushed aside? What desire, is it a healthy desire, an unhealthy desire? Is it out of control? Is it ungodly? Is it not something not being satisfied? How do we identify it? Because you need to start there. Because not only do we need to realize why, but here's the second rule. You ready for this? Can you read it with me? Fix the problem, not the blame. If you don't know what the why is, your tendency is to fix the blame. Have you ever noticed that? That what we'll tend to do in a fight is fix the blame on somebody. Fix the blame on that person. We may not even articulate it, but we'll feel it on the inside. We'll blame. We're really good at the blame game, right? When we focus on blame, we focus on people. When we focus on problems, what's the problem or the desire that's being thwarted, we focus on solutions. We focus on solutions. Now, you remember last Sunday we talked about Adam and Eve? And how Adam and Eve were really into the blame game. You remember that? Remember my best joke remember my best joke from last year? Do you want to hear it again? Some of you weren't here. Okay, I'm going to tell you. Here we go. So Adam blames God, right? Because remember what happened? They sinned and they're running and they're hiding and all that sort of stuff. And God comes and says, what's going on here? And Adam blames God. You gave me this woman. And Adam blames Eve. And Eve blames the serpent. And the serpent doesn't have a leg to stand on. You remember that? Hey, you're laughing at it again. That's a good sign. But that blame game is very, very normal. I'm going to blame. I'm going to fix the blame instead of fixing the problem. Here's another way of thinking about why this is a bad idea. The goal in any conflict is to become one, O-N-E, not to determine who won, W-O-N. Now those words sound the same in English, one and one, weirdly enough, this crazy language we speak, but they are radically different words. And in a conflict, what do you want to do? You want to become O-N-E. You want to say, how can we become one? And anything other than pursuing oneness is losing, okay? It isn't who won the argument, because if one of you won the argument, then the whole relationship isn't as healthy as it needs to be. Ultimately, you've got to pursue unity. You've got to pursue oneness. That's the goal. Something else that I wrote down here. When you get into a fight, you have all these options, right? We can end up with it being my way. That's the way we're going to end this fight. My way, your way, no way, halfway, or our way. My way means I win. Your way means you win. No way means no one wins. Halfway means both halves lose, half lose and half win. We compromise in that sense to such a degree that the problem is really never really resolved, right? Or our way means that what? We both win. And what we want to do in an art of fight is we want to both win. We want to become we want to both say that we're O-N-E, right? I almost spelt it wrong. O-N-E. We want to become one. And every time you and I get into some kind of strategy in the conflict so that we win and not so that we become O-N-E, we lose, okay? So in the conflict, here's what we want to do. Realize why, what are the desires, and fix the problem, not the blame. Ready for the next one? Say it with me. Ready? Talk, okay? You need to talk. Silence isn't always golden. Sometimes it's yellow, okay? And what we need to do is we need to talk. And I know that it happens that often there are people who are rammers, they want to get everything through, and there are people who are clammers, they just want to keep quiet to themselves. And often rammers marry clammers, or friends of rammers are clammers, and you need to kind of understand that that's not healthy. There needs to be a balance in here. Here's what the Bible says. You ready? Can you read it with me? Speak the truth in love. That is a loaded phrase. It is jammed with truth. Speak the what? Truth. Truth. Now, you know what happens when you get into a fight with somebody? Who cares about truth, man? I want to win. And we'll use words that are like not going to help you become one. You always spit on the mirror when you brush your teeth. You're never on time to a golf game. You know what I'm saying? Those are exaggerating words, and they're words that are said to win. When you're going to speak the truth, you got to speak the truth, okay? So I need to know the truth. I need to speak the truth. But the other thing that he says is speak the truth how? In love. It's not just good enough to be blasting out the truth. It needs to be truth that's stated in love. In other words, is what I'm saying in content and how I'm saying it and delivery and purpose spoken in love. That's really critical for me to ask. You're saying, Ken, that's going to slow the fight down. Yeah, probably, okay. It's going to slow it right down. I want this thing to speed up. No. You need to be asking, should I say it? How am I going to say it? Should I deliver it this way? Is this the right time? You're going to be asking those questions. You're going to speak the truth in love. Now, you notice you speak the truth. What does it say? Let's go back here. Speak as well, right? So I've got to say things. So if you're tending to be someone who doesn't want to speak, you need to push yourself to speak. If you're tend to be somebody who wants to talk all the time, you need to give the other person a chance to speak, okay? So we want to speak what? The truth how? In love. I mean, that is a loaded statement. And we could all take that statement and sort of superimpose it over the fight that we're in the middle of and say, am I speaking the truth in love? It's kind of like we should have this on our hats, have a hat and a fight hat that says, am I speaking the truth in love? You need to speak the truth in love. I need to speak the truth in love. When I speak the truth in love, the truth in love I speak can be helpful, right? Can help resolve the question here. So realize why. What is the desire that's being thwarted? Fixed on the problem. Let's deal with the problem, not the blame. So what's that issue? I'm going to talk. Here's number 4. No mind reading. Can you say that with me, please? No mind reading. You know what I mean by this? Jesus could read minds and walk on water. You can't do either, okay? You can't do either. Here's the deal. Often when we're in a fight with somebody else, what we will do is we'll look at the motives. We think we figured out, I know why you said that. I know why you've messed that up for me. I know why I wanted pleasure. I know why you did that. You're just trying to get under my skin. You know what I'm saying? We somehow think we can read a person's mind and understand their motives. I don't understand my own motives that well. Do you sometimes? Do you ever sit back and go, like, why did I say that? Any of you ever done that? I didn't mean to say, where did that come from? You know what I'm saying? Like, why did I act this way? I don't understand my own motives. And there's this beautiful, beautiful passage in Corinthians chapter 4 where the Apostle Paul, this great godly missionary, talks about motives, his own motives, and how we should respond to that whole arena of motives in our lives. Now watch what he says. I love Paul. I wish I was like Paul. Don't you wish you could say this? I care very little if I'm judged by you or by any human court. I just don't care if you judge me. Wouldn't you love to be there? Yes. I care very little if I am judged by you or by any human court. Indeed, watch this now, I do not even, what does he say? Judge myself. You what? I don't judge myself. Now you have to understand contextually what he's saying here. He's saying, I look at my life, I evaluate my life, I want to make sure that my motives, as best as I understand them, are where they need to be, but I can only go so far below the surface of my life to figure out if maybe there's some dark spots in there that aren't healthy. Now listen, here's what's happening. The church in Corinth is mad at Paul. They've been blaming him. They've been telling him, you've got the wrong motives. You're only after fame. You're only after money. That's why you do what you do. He comes back and says, I care very little if I'm judged by you or any human court. Indeed, I do not even judge myself. My conscience is clear. As far as my conscience is concerned, I have been doing things for the right reason. I'm not after money. It's not all about me. But that does not make me innocent. It may be that underneath the surface of who I am, there is some dark stuff going on. I've looked at I don't believe it's there. I don't want it to be there. I'm asking God for it not to be there, but maybe below it's happening. Okay? It is the Lord who judges me. I'm opening myself up to God and saying, you look inside my heart, make sure it's right. Therefore, he's saying, therefore, judge nothing before the appointed time. Wait until the Lord comes. He will bring to light what is hidden in the darkness and will expose what? Expose what? The motives of the heart. Paul's saying, as far as I can see, I think they're okay. I want them to be okay. But it may be that they're not. It may be that there's some dark stuff going on. I'm going to wait and let God judge me on that. I'm going to try and because if I just keep staring at my navel, okay, I'm not going to go anywhere. If I just keep looking on the inside over and over and over again, I'm going to get hung up. I'm going to get stuck. I'm not going to move beyond this to where I need to be, okay? At that time, each will receive their praise from God. I love how he's looking forward to this experience. Now, here's the deal. A lot of times when we're in a fight, we start moving past the surface that we can see and think that we can figure out what's going on inside of a person's heart, okay? I know why you did that. I know why you said that. I understand this about you. And I want to tell you this. No, you don't, okay? You don't. You can't even figure out all of your motives, for quite frankly. And it's unfair and out of line for you to use those kinds of comments. Stephen Covey writes in one of his books, I think it's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He tells a story about a time on a Sunday morning when he's on a subway in New York City. And it's really quiet. You know, the train is rattling along on the rails, and there's somebody over there kind of dozing off, and somebody reading a newspaper and so on. It's really quiet. They pull into one of the subway stations, and these little kids, 4 or 5 of them, jump on into the car, along with just a single man. And the man sits down and puts his head in his hands and his elbows on his knees and just sits there. And these kids start running around this car. They're jumping off the seats. They're knocking the newspaper out of people's hands. They're making all kinds of noise. And Covey's, getting more and more agitated about this. And so he finally goes over to the man and says, "Sir, your children are really out of control. Can you speak to them and try and, settle them down?" And the man lifts his head and he says to Covey, I'm so sorry, my head's not here in this space. We just left the hospital an hour ago. Their mother died, and I think they're trying to sort it all out. And I don't even know. I'm just, my head's kind of, just in a totally different space. I'm sorry, I'll get control over them. Have you ever had an experience where you've judged somebody else and discovered you were like really, really off base? You ever done that? Just me? Okay. You guys are my model. I'm going to be following you. You need to be really, really careful to stay outside that turf. Just say, I can't go there, can't go there, can't go there. And it may be that we've got to learn to do that because we've been so used to doing that, but it's really a critical thing, right? No mind reading. Okay, number 5. Stay calm and controlled. Can you read that with me? Stay calm and controlled. That's what we want to do. Unlike Lucy. If I can't be right, I'm going to be wrong at the top of my lungs, okay? You ever find that? You're losing the argument, so you get louder and louder to try and maybe gain some space on it. That's what Lucy does. And what we're really talking about here is our anger. And we got 3 options with our anger. Express it, let the person have it, suppress it, stuff it inside, or confess it. Admit to it. Go to God and say, right in the middle of the discussion with that person, just quietly in your heart, God, I get this anger and I want you to deal with it. Can you control it? I don't want this to take control of this. The person is defaming me, they're not valuing me, or the person is stopping me from experiencing this desire or that desire. Help me to deal with it, right? Now watch what the Bible says. I love this verse. In fact, can I get you to read it with me? You ready? A gentle answer turns away wrath, but harsh words stir up anger. Now we could spend all morning on this truth, okay? Because this verse is jam-packed with some beautiful stuff here. Notice there's two options. Gentle answer or harsh answer. Gentle answer or harsh answer. There's two options. Gentle or harsh. You got a choice. In the middle of a dialogue, in the middle of a fight, you have a choice. I can be gentle or I can be what? I can be harsh. I choose whether to be gentle or whether to be harsh. You need to choose that. Let me ask you about this word gentle for just a minute. When you're in the middle of a fight, do you feel gentle? Should you pursue being gentle? What does gentle look like? Is gentle loud? I'm being gentle. Is that gentle? Not really, right? So would you say gentle is soft in terms of how it's speaking? Now watch this. A gentle answer, what does it do? It turns away what? Wrath. Whose wrath? Both parties' wrath. Have you noticed that when you force yourself to be gentle, you actually control your own anger? I'm going to speak quietly. I'm going to say it slowly. I'm going to be gentle. But have you also noticed it helps the other person with their anger? In other words, if I pursue gentleness, I'm going to get this conversation, this dialogue, this fight, to a place where we're going to be able to deal with the problem and not the blame, where we're going to be able to stop digging below the surface into areas we don't have any right to go to in terms of motives. I can do that simply by the volume of my voice and the cadence of my voice. I can use gentleness to help me, and I can use gentleness to help you. And what you'll often find, when you lower the volume and when you speak more gently, that other person lowers the volume and speaks more gently. In other words, I actually have this level of control, as it were, certainly over me, and maybe influence at some level in the conversation. Does that make sense? So this, I mean, again, we could unpack more here, but this just, I think is beautiful what God's teaching us here in this context. So realize why. What's the desire? Fix the problem, not the blame. Talk, no mind reading. Stay calm and controlled. Here's another one. No history lessons. Can you say that one with me, please? No history lessons. Now, here's what I mean about this. Sometimes, in the middle of a fight, somebody will choose to go back outside the context of the fight itself to whatever history they can grab hold of to pull into the middle of the fight so they can win the fight, right? You ever been there? And all of a sudden you're going like, where did that come from? I thought we dealt with that. Like, what's that? This doesn't have anything to do with this, does it? I don't care. I'm bringing it in the middle of this one. And so they do. And you end up with this conflict that's going on. And so what we'll do is, instead of dealing with one issue, now we've got a whole train load of issues unloading themselves in the middle of the dialogue. And it is really hard to deal with a whole bunch of things. It's hard enough to deal with just one. So no history lessons. Watch this. Get rid of all bitterness. Bitterness is stuff that you should have dealt with and didn't deal with, or did deal with, but you're not getting past it and you need to get past it. Deal with one issue at a time. Get rid of all bitterness, because here's what it'll take you to. Rage, anger, brawling, slander, every form of malice. Be kind and compassionate to each other, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God has forgiven you. No history lessons, okay? There is a sack I carry around. It sits upon my shoulder. Whenever I feel angry or mad, I put it in this holder. Resentment goes in as well as hate, bitterness, heartbreak, and blues. If ever you choose to argue with me, you'll likely go into it too. That sack is strong. It carries a lot, but when it's full some morning, I'll dump that sack upon your head without the slightest warning. Been there, right? And if you got a sack, can you just, take out a utility knife, slice the bottom, and dump it? Can you do that? Can you get rid of it? no history lessons, no labeling. No labeling. Okay. You know what kids do? Remember when you were in like grade 5, 6, 7, 8? Some of you are there right now. Remember one of the things you used to do was so funny at school? Remember in the hallways of school? You would take a piece of paper and write "kick me" and tape it to the back of one of your friends, right? Or maybe somebody you didn't really like. But you know, that is labels. And what the label would say, or it would say, you know, stupid, or some kind of label that we would put on people. And you know what? Kids aren't the only ones. When we were kids, it isn't the only time we do that. We tend to do that as adults. And we'll throw a label on a person in the middle of a fight. You're just like your mother. Your father would have done that way too. I know what you're like. You know what I'm saying? And we throw the label on the person. And when we do that, we really destroy any, all of a sudden that person that's who they are. And that's what we've done with them. And I want to say this, don't be afraid to label the action or the activity if it's wrong or right, but be careful about labeling the person. You don't want to do that, right? One of the things that I notice is that the people that I'm closest to are the people that I can hurt the most with labels. You notice that? The people that are closest to me can hurt me most with labels. It's really easy to go there. It's also true that the people I'm closest to, I can actually build up and strengthen and help. In fact, this is the label that we need to put on absolutely everybody. They're loved by God. You need to start there. That needs to be so important. And let me put it this way. Here's the next one. Give positive strokes. Can you say that with me? Give positive strokes. So here's the verse. Be kind and compassionate to one another. Be kind and compassionate to one another. In the middle of a fight, give positive strokes. Be compassionate. Be kind. Say kind things. Say compassionate things. Make sure that you speak that way. Now, you know this illustration, right? What do you see on there? And of course, everyone says, well, I see a dot. Yeah, that's true. But there's also a whole bunch of white around that dot. And sometimes we just focus on this. We don't see all the other stuff. And when we're in the middle of a fight, it's really important for us to remember all the other stuff and be kind and compassionate. Say the things that will build that person up. Say the things that would encourage them. Say the things that would be kind to them as you're dealing with the issue. Don't ignore it, but don't focus just on that stuff. Bring the whole view of that person in place in your heart. See all of them. Sometimes you have to just stop and say, well, I know this is true, this is true, this is true, this is true. This is one area we got to talk about. But these other things are also true. And it's so important for us to do that for ourselves. Helps us speak gently. And it's so important for the other person to hear that as well. So you have to say it. Give positive strokes. Here's the last one. Forgive. Forgive. We need to be moving when there's been an offense that's been done deliberately to us. We need to always be in the posture of forgiving. Always forgiving. Coming into the conversation even with a mindset toward forgiving. That needs to be our attitude. As Paul writes, forgive each other just as in Christ God forgave you. It's so critical for us to be there, to take the judge's hat off and the gavel out of our hands and to begin to come to a place where we're going to say, I want to take this, I want this to be out of the way so that our relationship can be everything that I know you and I both want it to be. Let's deal with the issue. Let's get it taken care of. Let's move it aside. Let's get it resolved. Let's move forward because that's just so important for us to do that. So there you have it. Realize why. Fix the problem, not the blame. Talk. No mind reading. Stay calm and controlled. No history lessons. No labeling. Give positive strokes and forgive. Move towards forgiveness right away. So, 9 of them. And I know most of you have memorized all 9, but let me go back real quickly and ask you a question. I want to read them through again, and I want you to choose one. I'm not going to get you to raise your hand or anything in front of a whole bunch of people, but I want you just to ask yourself, which one of these or 2 of these do I need to really work on? Which one am I going to bring to point in my life and say, God, I want your Spirit, the Holy Spirit of God, to help me with this particular issue. I'm prone to, and I don't want to go there anymore. I'm prone to make this strong. Because here's what's really cool. We can actually, I believe, with all my heart, we can go before God and say, God, I want you to change this area in our lives. And we can pray about it and ask him, and we will watch it change. You'll find yourself in the middle of a fight and go, wow, I'm handling this different. Whatever it is that needs to change. You ready? Okay, first thing, realize why. Fix the problem. Focus on the problem, not on the person. Make sure you talk, but you remember what we said, speak the truth in love. No mind reading. I'm going to stay away from motives. I'm not going to go there. I'm going to push back on that. Stay calm and controlled. A gentle answer turns away wrath. I'm going to try and be gentle because I can tend to amp up the volume. God gave me this great set of lungs, but I got to ask him to kind of pull it back a bit. No history lessons, one issue at a time, right? No labeling, not going to do that. I'm going to encourage them in the conversation, and I'm going to always be in a posture of forgiveness as we move into this. Okay? Let's bow our heads together. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for loving us enough to give us this amazing book that teaches us about such incredibly practical things like fighting fair. And I pray for marriages in this room. I pray for parents in this room. I pray for kids, for siblings, for people with coworkers or neighbors on the street or a broader scope of relatives, where the relationship isn't what it could be or should be. And I pray, Lord, that you would give us the wisdom and the grace and the courage to commit ourselves to fighting your way. I pray that you would speak to hearts. I pray that people would say, I'm going to deal with this. I'm going to ask God to change this in my life so that I can live in a way that would honor and reflect him in every single way. I want to do this for your glory, God, and I want you to help me to change. And I pray this in your name. Amen.